The scent of motor oil and metal filings still clung to my work clothes as I pulled into my driveway. 12 hours at the garage had wrung me out, and all I wanted was to see my pride and joy, my 1967 Camaro SS. The one I'd spent a year and a half transforming from a rusted carcass into a flawless machine. I tapped the remote. The door grumbled upward, revealing chrome bright enough to blind and paint so deep you could dive into it. That's when my world blew apart. Thief. Somebody dial 911. He's taking my car. My HOA president neighbor, Brianna Sutton, came barreling over the lawn like a rabid pit bull. Phone already jammed to her ear. Yes, there's a black man stealing my car right now. Send everyone. Sirens were already screaming somewhere nearby. She dialed before even speaking to me. I'm in my own driveway, holding my own keys, staring at my own Camaro, about to be cuffed for stealing it. What would you do if a neighbor turned the police into a weapon against you on your own property? Drop a flag emoji. Where are you tuning in from? Let's see how far this madness travels. My name is Darius, and I'm a third-generation mechanic. My granddad taught my dad taught me, and we've kept this town's rides alive for 6 decades. When my divorce wrapped last spring, after my ex suddenly decided grime under nails isn't attractive, I used what remained to buy a modest place in Maple Ridge Estates. Middle-class HOA territory where lawns are exact, mailboxes match, and folks supposedly mind their business, or so the realtor swore. The Camaro wasn't some midlife crisis splurge. I found her at an estate sale 18 months back, a corroded corpse most people would dump for $30. But beneath the decay, I saw pure American muscle waiting to breathe again. $3,200 later, she was mine. Every weekend for a year and a half became resurrection time. Fresh 350 small block, rebuilt turbo 400 transmission. Full suspension redo. The paint alone took 4 months. Sand, prime, wet sand, until the Hugger orange looked like it could blind low-flying planes. I documented every bolt, gasket, and bead of sweat with photos for insurance. Kept every receipt in a 3-ring binder thicker than a phone book. The smell of fresh primer and metal dust became my Saturday cologne. Coffee going cold on the bench while I got lost in the meditation of mechanical precision. Enter Brianna Sutton, the living embodiment of a homeowners association fever dream. Brianna moved to Maple Ridge 5 years ago and instantly anointed herself queen of everything. A real estate agent driving a white BMW that gets detailed more than most people bathe. Manicured nails that have never met real work, hair highlights that defy gravity, and a grin that could freeze antifreeze. She'd been HOA president 3 straight years, unopposed because nobody wanted the job of neighborhood Gestapo. Her specialty was paperwork as a weapon, trash cans 12 minutes past pickup, fence posts measuring 2 1/8 inches instead of the regulation 2, mailbox fonts not Maple Ridge approved. She once cited me for grass allegedly over the 2.5-inch maximum. Showed up with a ruler. Just maintaining community standards, she said, with that plastic smile. 2 weeks before the garage door blow-up, she marched over while I was bleeding brake lines. The squeal from my impact wrench apparently offended her delicate senses. Excuse me, there's a noise ordinance. No power tools after 6. I wiped my hands, stayed diplomatic. Actually, city rules allow hobby work until 9. Happy to show you the statute. Her smile went sub-zero. Well, we'll see about that. This kind of industrial activity harms property values. The way she said industrial activity like I was running a meth lab instead of preserving automotive history. The day it all detonated started with Brianna's monthly pool party spectacle. Saturday morning, her backyard filled with neighborhood spouses sipping mimosas and pretending to care about vacation pics. I could hear the fake laughter through my garage walls. Then her voice sliced the chatter like nails on a chalkboard. Oh, that's my new Camaro. Just bought it from a classic dealer in Phoenix. 45 grand, but worth it. They're shipping it next week. My socket wrench clanged to the concrete. She was flashing photos on her phone. Pictures of a Camaro identical to mine, soaking up their ooze like she'd personally invented internal combustion. That afternoon, needing brake fluid, I fired up my girl and backed out slow. The 350's rumble bounced off the houses like thunder. Deep, primal, gorgeous. When I rolled back an hour later, Brianna stood in her driveway like a statue of suburban fury, arms crossed, face flushed, staring at my car like a hawk tracking a field mouse. I nodded politely. She didn't reply, just kept drilling holes through the Camaro with her eyes. That night, I'm betting she doom-scrolled herself into a fantasy, stacking delusion on delusion, convincing herself I had somehow stolen her imaginary purchase. By morning, she'd evolved from annoying neighbor to something far riskier, a Karen with a crusade. When 2 patrol cars screeched into my driveway with a full light show, I knew my quiet Saturday was toast. 4 officers spilled out like they were hitting a bank robbery, which, according to Brianna's Oscar-worthy 911 performance, they were. Officer Alvarez, a 20-year vet with kind eyes and the patience of someone who's seen every flavor of neighborhood crazy, approached with his hand resting easy on his belt. His partner, a younger guy named Pierce, built like he bench presses cruisers for cardio, flanked him with a notebook ready. "Evening, sir. We got a call about a stolen vehicle at this address." The absurdity smacked me like a brick. "Stolen vehicle? Officer, this is my car in my garage at my house," like accusing me of stealing my own fridge. Brianna materialized beside them like a suburban poltergeist, knuckles white around her phone. "That's him. That's the thief. I just bought that exact Camaro yesterday for $45,000. I took a breath, tasting the lingering exhaust from my perfectly legal muscle car, fighting the urge to laugh at the cosmic joke my life had become. "Stay calm," I reminded myself. My old man always said, "Documentation beats desperation every time." Officers, I can prove ownership right now. I pulled my phone and scrolled to the photo album I'd kept obsessively. This car's been mine 18 months. I rebuilt her from the studs. Alvarez studied the progression pics with genuine interest. Rust heap. To rolling frame to mirror gloss perfection. His brows climbed as he swiped through shots of me setting the block, priming panels, stitching the interior. "That's serious craftsmanship," he murmured, zooming in on the engine bay. "You do this professionally. Family trade. My granddad would have whacked me with a wrench for sloppy work." Meanwhile, Brianna was entering full psychological tailspin. "He's lying. Look at these." She shoved printed photos at the officers, clearly yanked from some dealer site 5 minutes before dialing 911. "I wired the money yesterday. They're shipping it this week." Officer Nguyen reviewed her evidence with all the excitement of reading tax forms. Generic dealer, stock pics, no VINs, no real paperwork, just glossy images that could be any orange 67 built then or now. "Ma'am, do you have a bill of sale, wire confirmation, dealer contact?" Brianna's face turned fire engine red. It's being processed. Paperwork takes time on classics." While she improvised, I dug through my workbench like an automotive archaeologist. 3-ring binder, organized by date, my car's entire genealogy. "Here's my DMV registration," I said, handing Alvarez the Holy Grail. 18 months old, my name, this address, matching VIN. His flashlight danced across the official document. Everything lined up, numbers, dates, signatures, insurance too. I flipped the sleeve. Progressive required progress photos for agreed value coverage. Nguyen jotted notes, glancing at Brianna's increasingly wild claims. She was unraveling faster than a discount sweater, and I almost felt sorry. Almost. Officers, he forged everything. Probably some identity theft ring. That was my cue to drop the nuke. From the back of the binder, I pulled a yellow legal sheet, edges softened by time and handling, written in a 93-year-old widow's shaky script. 1967 Chevrolet Camaro. Condition as is. Extensive rust. $3,200 cash. Buyer assumes all responsibility. Below, a signature that belonged in a museum. Eleanor Hutchinson estate sale. Phone number and date from 18 months ago. Alvarez examined it like he'd found buried treasure. Original purchase doc? Eleanor was selling her late husband's projects. Sweetest lady you'd meet. Made me promise to bring the car back when it was done. The silence was so complete I could hear a sprinkler 3 houses down. Nguyen snapped his notebook shut with judicial finality. "Ma'am, this gentleman has a clear chain of ownership more than a year long. Your evidence looks like internet printouts." Alvarez's tone shifted to that register cops use for public meltdowns. Ma'am, filing a false report is a misdemeanor in this state. My dad was a prosecutor 30 years. People do real time for knowingly lying to law enforcement. Color drained from Brianna's face like someone opened a valve. There must be some mistake. The stress of car shopping. You know how confusing this gets. But her eyes told a different story. As the officers prepped to leave, I caught her staring from her window with the cold calculation of a chess player setting the next move. This wasn't finished. This was only round one. Monday morning hit like a diesel backfire. I shuffled to the mailbox in yesterday's clothes, coffee steaming in the cool air, and spotted an official HOA violation tucked inside like a coiled snake. Notice of covenant breach, unauthorized commercial vehicle storage. The citation claimed my work van, a standard Ford Transit with Darius Family Auto on the side, violated community rules. $200 fine, 48 hours to comply. At the bottom, Brianna's signature flourished like she'd signed my fate. Through my kitchen window, I watched her power walk past my driveway, cutting glances at my van like it was parked on her grandmother's grave. Her jog route had conveniently expanded to 17 passes by my house. I counted. Here's what most homeowners forget about HOA covenants. They're real contracts, not mood swings written by suburban tyrants. My divorce lawyer taught me that everything has a paper trail, and paper doesn't lie. I spent lunch at the county clerk's office digging through public records like an automotive archaeologist. What I found was better than a scratch-off jackpot. I'd bought my van in 2017, 3 years before Maple Ridge introduced its commercial vehicle limits in 2020. Anything owned before rule changes gets grandfathered, legally shielded from retroactive enforcement. Brianna could shriek until her vocal cords snapped. She had zero authority. I drafted a response my old man would have applauded, attached my purchase docs, and hand-delivered it to the HOA management office. The receptionist's eyes widened reading my rebuttal, probably calculating how much trouble her star board member had just summoned. "Oh dear," she whispered, like watching a car wreck in slow motion. "Miss Sutton won't appreciate this development." She had that right. By Wednesday, my mailbox had become Brianna's complaint dispenser. 3 more violation notices materialized like bad magic. Alleged oil stains on my driveway. Never mind, I power wash monthly with monk-like devotion. Excessive automotive odors from my garage. Apparently the honest scent of WD-40 and determination offended refined suburban noses. And noise citations during perfectly lawful hours. She was carpet bombing me with paperwork, hoping something would stick long enough to cause damage. That's when I made the smartest purchase of this entire war. I went full Big Brother on my own property. 4 high-definition security cameras, strategically placed, cloud-backed, night vision sharp enough to spot a mosquito landing on my mailbox. The footage revealed Brianna's new pastime, property line patrols. Each morning she'd sweep our shared fence with her iPhone, snapping photos, measuring with a collapsible yardstick that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She'd turned neighbor watching into an Olympic sport. Thursday evening brought the nuclear gambit, an emergency board meeting to address my ongoing violations. The notice hit my mailbox at 4 p.m. for a 7 p.m. meeting. Barely legal timing meant to kneecap any defense. I showed up expecting a kangaroo court and found worse. 3 middle-aged women at a folding table like they were planning a church bake sale. Brianna, her timid Lieutenant Clara, who apologized for breathing too loudly, and Janine, whose chief qualification was nodding enthusiastically at whatever Brianna said. "Where's the rest of the board?" I asked, taking a seat across from the ad hoc tribunal. Brianna's smile could preserve meat for winter. "This is sufficient for tonight's business. We're implementing an emergency ban on all automotive repairs, effective immediately. Past violations incur a $500 fine." I opened the HOA bylaws I'd memorized that afternoon. Knowledge is power. Applied knowledge is a tactical nuke. Cute theory, I said, scrolling like reading a menu. But Section 4.3 requires 7 days notice for voting items. And Section 4.7 mandates a quorum of 5 board members. I count 3, which gives this meeting the legal force of a neighborhood book club. Clara pinked like overcooked shrimp. "Well, this is just preliminary. And Section 2.9 says invalid meetings create personal liability for board members," I added. Thanks to 3 hours of legal research and a vat of coffee, Brianna's composure shattered like safety glass. You think you're so clever, don't you? Coming into our neighborhood with your people and your activities. The venom in her tone could strip paint, but my old man taught me how to handle bullies. Stay calm, stick to facts, let them hang themselves with their own rope. I think I'm a homeowner who reads contracts before signing them, I said. Wild concept, I know. That's when my neighbor Trevor found me later in the driveway, sheepish. Most of us think she's lost it, he admitted. Want coffee tomorrow? Time we talked. Friday morning delivered a doorbell concerto at 7:15 a.m. Dave Morales from City Code Enforcement stood on my porch, clipboard in hand, and the 1,000-yard stare of someone who's refereed too many neighbor feuds. Sorry to bother you early, Mr. Walker. Anonymous complaint about unlicensed commercial auto repair. Mind if I take a look? I led him into the garage where morning light washed over my weekend sanctuary. The scent of metal polish and clean oil hung like an expensive cologne. Every tool had a pegged home on walls that would make a Swiss watchmaker misty-eyed. Dave's tension evaporated the moment he stepped inside. Man, this is cleaner than the shop that services my truck. He ran a finger along my bench, came up spotless. What do you do for work? Family mechanic business. This is just hobby. Weekends only. No clients. He nodded, jotting notes while admiring my hoist. Anonymous complainant says you're running an illegal business. I see zero signs of commercial activity, no customer cars, no transactions. You're golden. As he climbed into his city rig, he paused with one boot on the step. Off the record, I've been to this subdivision 4 times this month. Same voice every time, different complaints. Lady needs a hobby that doesn't involve my department. Brianna's next masterstroke arrived via certified mail, a formal complaint to my homeowner's insurer. She'd contacted my carrier directly, claiming my garage setup was an unacceptable fire hazard threatening adjacent properties. The letter demanded immediate inspection or policy cancellation. When my agent, Ben Harper, showed Tuesday afternoon, I braced for bureaucratic purgatory. Instead, I got a kindred spirit who spent 10 minutes admiring the engine bay like it was the Sistine Chapel. Someone's definitely trying to jam you up, he said, signing his inspection with a flourish. Your fire safety exceeds commercial standards. Half these garages are death traps with propane tanks and Christmas light spaghetti. His company responded by sending Brianna a cease and desist that basically translated to, file another false insurance claim and we'll nail you for fraud. But our neighborhood? Napoleon had discovered the modern doomsday device, social media. The Maple Ridge Neighborhood Watch Facebook group materialized overnight like digital mold. Brianna's inaugural post featured photos of my van and garage alongside prose that would make a dog whistle factory proud. Just concerned about protecting our beautiful standards, she wrote with enough artificial sweet to cause cavities. Some activities may be more appropriate in industrial zones, don't you think? Trevor showed me screenshots over coffee, face red as a siren. 23 people joined in the first hour. It's a dumpster fire you can't stop watching. The comments turned gladiatorial. Several neighbors defended me, sharing their own Brianna horror tales. Others lurked, calculating the social cost of defying the HOA's reigning despot. Brianna's digital regime imploded when she started deleting dissent. Nothing angers suburbia like obvious censorship, and soon the group split into warring camps debating free speech and property values. Sunday morning brought escalation onto my driveway, metal confetti scattered across the concrete. 24 roofing nails positioned to puncture unsuspecting tires. My cameras caught the 2 a.m. culprit, a hoodie-clad figure moving with the jittery energy of a first-time felon. The gait looked familiar. That quick-step march. Brianna walked like someone perpetually late for an argument. Officer Pierce handled my report with appropriate gravity, especially after I laid out the escalating harassment. Classic intimidation pattern, he said, photographing evidence. Document everything. These simmer for months, then pop with arrests. While reviewing footage obsessively, something made my coffee turn cold. Brianna's morning routine now included detailed recon, pacing the property line with her phone, measuring angles, cataloging distances. This wasn't random harassment. She was conducting military-grade surveillance for a larger operation. The anonymous letter arrived Wednesday. Plain printer paper, no return address. Your kind doesn't belong here. Leave voluntarily or face escalating consequences. No signature, but the paper stock matched her HOA notices perfectly. My divorce lawyer had taught me enough about document tells to recognize identical watermarks and printer artifacts. Detective Elena Salazar, assigned to my growing case file, examined the letter with professional interest. Anonymous threatening correspondence qualifies for hate crime enhancements under state and federal statutes, she said. We're building a substantial criminal case against your neighbor. The next phase of this battle began in the dusty basement of the county courthouse, a fluorescent-lit purgatory that smelled like old coffee and bureaucratic despair. The records clerk, a woman who looked like she'd been filing documents since the Nixon era, pointed me toward Research Room B with all the enthusiasm of someone directing traffic. HOA financials are in the corporate filings, she rasped, sliding a dusty box across the counter. Good luck making sense of that mess. 3 hours later, buried in a paper avalanche, I found why Brianna guarded these records like nuclear codes. Maple Ridge's HOA financial statements read like a masterclass in creative embezzlement. $15,000 paid to B&S Property Solutions for consulting services that were never defined. $8,500 to Brianna's Bloom Gardens for landscaping that had never appeared. $12,000 to Sutton Associates for legal services that coincidentally began exactly when Brianna filed for divorce. The kicker. All three companies shared the same business address. 312 Oakwood Drive, Brianna's house. A quick check of the state business registry confirmed it. B&S Property Solutions sole proprietor, Brianna Sutton, founded 6 months after her divorce. Brianna's Bloom Gardens, dissolved last year after 0 actual work. Sutton Associates, her ex-husband's law firm, explaining her sudden hunger for untraceable cash. But the discovery that made my hands shake wasn't the theft itself. It was the hunting pattern hidden beneath. Cross-referencing complaint dates with property sales, I uncovered Brianna's true business model. She systematically targeted homeowners with escalating harassment until they sold below market value, then used her real estate license to facilitate quick sales to investor contacts. Double commission plus kickbacks from grateful buyers scooping up distressed properties. 3 families had fled Maple Ridge in the past year after enduring Brianna's special attention. The Hendersons sold for $40,000 under appraisal after months of citations over their son's basketball hoop causing excessive noise. The Patels gave up and moved after weekly violations for culturally inappropriate cooking odors that allegedly violated community standards. My case was textbook for her playbook. Single homeowner, no family support network, prime property worth $380,000. Perfect target for forced sale manipulation. Then I found the nuclear bomb buried in a stack of foreclosure notices, and I laughed aloud in that tomb-quiet research room. Brianna's own house was in default. $23,000 in unpaid HOA dues to her own association. Back taxes, attorney fees, credit card debt, the works. Her foreclosure hearing was scheduled for 4 weeks from today. The irony was so perfect it deserved a country song. The HOA president who terrorized neighbors over minor infractions hadn't paid her own dues in over a year. Suddenly, everything snapped into focus. The escalating desperation, the unhinged harassment, the false police reports. Brianna wasn't just a power-drunk Karen. She was a cornered predator facing financial ruin, and I represented her last chance at a major commission before the bank took everything. The Camaro incident had given her the perfect excuse to accelerate her timeline. I photocopied everything, my hands trembling slightly as the machine spat out page after page of evidence. $17 to document my neighbor's criminal empire. Best money I'd ever spent. Walking back to my truck, I called Trevor with news that would change everything. You sitting down? Because what I just found changes the entire game. Saturday morning turned Trevor's garage into mission control for Operation Takedown Karen. The air smelled like coffee, motor oil, and sweet justice. Our ragtag crew of suburban rebels gathered around a battered folding table, ready for battle. Trevor had assembled what I could only describe as the Avengers of neighborhood warfare. Sarah Thompson, a forensic accountant who could sniff out embezzlement like a bloodhound on a bacon trail. Michael Patterson, a semi-retired corporate lawyer whose idea of fun was annihilating people in depositions. Linda Reyes, a high school teacher with organizational skills that could run NASA. And Carlos Alvarez, a contractor who knew every building code loophole in 3 counties. Jesus on a socket wrench, Sarah muttered, spreading Brianna's financial records across the table like a CSI investigator studying a crime scene. This woman's embezzlement has the subtlety of a brick through a window. Mike pushed his glasses up his nose, eyes locked on the papers with the focus of a shark scenting blood. 78 grand in fraudulent transactions. Paper trail cleaner than my grandmother's kitchen. Harassment pattern fully documented. Prosecutors dream of cases like this. Linda was already building a color-coded timeline on poster board, mapping harassment campaigns against property sales with the precision of a math teacher grading finals. Look at this beautiful pattern. Target vulnerable families, escalate violations, then magically produce investor buyers when they break. Carlos leaned back in his folding chair, whistling. And she's using HOA money to pay divorce lawyers. That's not criminal genius, that's criminal stupid. Our battle plan formed over 2 hours of caffeinated strategy. Operation Documentation Fortress. Carlos would turn our neighborhood into Fort Knox with cameras, motion sensors, and night vision. If she even looks sideways at your mailbox, we'll have it in courtroom ready 4K. Linda dove into full teacher mode, creating standardized incident report forms with the thoroughness of a final exam. Dates, times, witnesses, photos, police report numbers. We're building a case file so airtight it'll survive a nuclear blast. Sarah was practically vibrating with forensic glee. I'm calling in favors. We'll produce an independent audit that meets federal court standards. Operation Legal Annihilation. Mike explained HOA corporate governance like he was describing a favorite hobby. Board members have fiduciary duties under state law. Every fraudulent transaction creates personal liability. She's not just stealing, she's stripping her own legal protection. The upcoming board elections were perfectly timed. Trevor, Sarah, and Mike would run for the 3 open seats, flipping control from Brianna's rubber stamp committee to our justice coalition. We file the criminal complaint Tuesday, Mike continued, sorting police reports like crossword clues. Embezzlement, harassment, false police reports. She's looking at a felony buffet. Operation Public Humiliation. Linda, our propaganda minister, designed a dual-pronged campaign. Professional flyers explaining the theft and a coordinated social media push. We make Brianna's crimes the talk of every dinner table. The financial stakes were devastating. $78,000 stolen from 40 households meant each family had been overcharged nearly $2,000. When soccer moms find out their HOA president's been robbing them, Sarah grinned, suburban revolutions happen fast. Carlos suggested the media angle that would make journalists salivate. HOA president steals money while racially harassing neighbor. Channel 7 would break programming for that. Our psychological warfare plan was simple. Let Brianna think she's winning while we build a legal cage around her. I'd keep my routine normal, act oblivious, and let her desperation generate more evidence. Classic rope-a-dope, Mike said, satisfied. Let her throw wild punches while we document every miss. The timeline converged perfectly. Foreclosure hearing in 3 weeks, audit results in 2, board elections in 4. Multiple disasters arriving like a choreographed demolition. Sarah had already contacted Channel 7's investigative bulldog, Janet Miles, a reporter with a shelf full of Emmys from exposing suburban corruption. HOA fraud stories are ratings gold, Sarah said. She's drooling to cover this one. Mike uncovered the final nail for Brianna's career coffin. Her real estate license renewal in 6 weeks required criminal background disclosure. Fraud convictions mean automatic permanent revocation, he said with a satisfied smile. Financial ruin plus professional death equals total annihilation. As our war council disbanded, Trevor clapped my shoulder. 2 months ago, you were the quiet mechanic who minded his business. Now you're leading a neighborhood revolution. I looked over our evidence walls, plans, and coalition charts. The shift from isolated target to resistance leader felt surreal, like discovering you could fly. Sometimes bullies pick the wrong victim, I said. Brianna's about to learn that the hard way. The trap was baited, primed, and ready. Now all we had to do was wait for our cornered predator to trigger her own destruction. Monday morning brought the sweet sound of panic echoing across the street. Brianna's voice, sharp and frantic, slicing through the calm like a fire alarm. At 7 a.m., she was pacing her driveway, phone glued to her ear, gesturing wildly at anyone unlucky enough to glance her way. I need an emergency board meeting tonight. Something's happening, and I need legal protection. Through my kitchen window, I watched her scramble to rally what was left of her loyalists. Clara shuffled over reluctantly, looking like she'd rather be at the dentist. Janine followed minutes later, but even from a distance I could see doubt creeping into their posture. By noon, an emergency assessment notice had landed in every mailbox, $500 per household for immediate legal defense against outside agitators attempting to destabilize community governance. The letter accused me of threatening to sue the entire HOA and demanded immediate payment for attorneys. What Brianna didn't know was that Trevor had attended her sad three-person meeting from the parking lot, phone recorder capturing every desperate word. "They're investigating our finances," Brianna's voice crackled through the speaker when Trevor played it back later. "I don't know how much they know, but we need to control the narrative before this gets out of hand." Clara's nervous suggestion, "Brianna, maybe we should just," was cut off. "No, I've worked too hard building this community to let them destroy everything. If I have to leave town, fine, but I'm not going down alone." The audio quality was crystal clear and courtroom ready. Mike's grin when he heard it was predatory. Wednesday night brought Brianna's first true act of desperation, vandalism, with a side of stupidity. My security cameras caught her sneaking around my property at 2:47 a.m., dressed like a suburban ninja in black yoga pants and a hoodie that fooled no one. She'd brought a revenge kit, a tire-slashing knife, spray paint, and small containers of motor oil stashed behind my garage. The plan was obvious, plant evidence of environmental violations, but Brianna had never been accused of subtlety. Best of all, she spent 15 minutes staging her evidence while standing directly under my motion-activated floodlight, providing crystal-clear footage of her face, her BMW's license plate, and her sad attempt at a frame-up. Thursday morning's visit from code enforcement was her most spectacular flop yet. The inspector found the oil containers immediately, Home Depot price tags still attached. When he explained that fresh motor oil doesn't even qualify as an environmental violation, Brianna's story collapsed faster than a house of cards in a hurricane. "Ma'am, filing false environmental reports is a federal offense," he told her, irritation barely concealed. "I'm documenting this incident and forwarding it to our fraud unit." Brianna's social media spiral started that afternoon and burned through the weekend like a digital dumpster fire no one could look away from. The Maple Ridge Neighborhood Watch Group turned into her personal therapy journal, complete with increasingly unhinged rants about outside agitators and property value destruction. Her 2 a.m. Friday post was a masterpiece of self-incrimination. Some people don't understand that communities have standards. When certain elements move in and start changing the character of established neighborhoods, decent people have to act to protect their investments. Screenshot saved, forwarded to our legal team. Saturday brought the bribery attempt that sealed her fate. Carlos was installing cameras at Linda's house when Brianna approached with all the subtlety of a used car salesman, desperate to hit quota. "I know Darius is paying you to lie about me," she said, pulling out an envelope fat enough to choke a horse. $2,000 cash if you forget about those cameras and stop helping with this harassment campaign." Carlos, bless his contractor soul, kept installing while recording the entire exchange on his phone. "Ma'am, I'm just helping neighbors protect their property. Maybe you should talk to a lawyer." "I don't need lawyers. I need this neighborhood back under control," she snapped, her voice climbing. "That man has turned everyone against me with his lies and manipulation." The desperation was so thick you could spread it on toast. Brianna was unraveling in real time, and every frantic move created more evidence for our case. Sunday evening brought the nuclear option. Another false police report claiming I had threatened her with a weapon during a driveway confrontation that never happened. The responding officers found me in my garage, covered in grease, helping a neighbor with a transmission. 3 witnesses present. Officer Pierce's patience was gone. "Ma'am, this is your 4th false report in 2 weeks. You're looking at charges." The preliminary audit results arrived Monday via Sarah's encrypted email, and the numbers were even worse than we'd thought. Brianna hadn't just stolen $78,000. She'd been systematically overcharging every household for phantom services while pocketing the excess. Total theft, about $96,000 over 30 months. She wasn't just broke and desperate. She was a career criminal who'd finally run out of victims. Tuesday night's break-in was a slapstick spectacle worthy of the Three Stooges. At 2:33 a.m., while normal people dreamed about vacations and lottery wins, Brianna was living her best burglar fantasy at the HOA management office. Security footage looked like a rejected heist movie scene written by someone who'd never committed a crime. There she was, our suburban Napoleon, using a stolen master key with the stealth of a rhinoceros in tap shoes. She frantically fed documents into an industrial shredder, trying to turn evidence into the world's most expensive confetti. The silent alarm triggered faster than her common sense, and Officer Alvarez arrived to find her elbow-deep in shredded paper, surrounded by what used to be financial records. "Ma'am, step away from the computer and put your hands where I can see them," he ordered, probably wondering how his Tuesday night had turned into amateur hour. Brianna's response was pure daytime TV gold. "You don't understand. They're destroying everything I built. This community was perfect before they came." The smell of overheated electronics and panic filled the office as she was cuffed and read her rights. Watching the footage later, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost, until I remembered the false police reports and the nails scattered on my driveway. Bail was set at $25,000, which, for Brianna, might as well have been $25 million given her financial Titanic. She spent 3 days in county lockup, probably the first time in her life without a manager to complain to. While our fallen tyrant was enjoying government hospitality, Clara made the decision that would seal Brianna's fate. She visited the jail with a hidden recorder in her purse. What she captured was prosecutorial poetry. "I need your help, Clara." Brianna's voice cracked through the phone speaker when Clara played it for us later. "There's money in my garage behind the water heater. Cash. We can both disappear before this gets worse." Clara's reply barely registered. "Brianna, I can't. 50,000. Help me, and we start over somewhere. They don't know us." Mike whistled low when he heard it. "Admissions of theft, conspiracy, flight risk, obstruction. This woman's trying to set records for criminal stupidity." Thursday night's emergency neighborhood meeting packed the community center beyond capacity. The air buzzed with righteous fury and the distinctive aroma of industrial-strength coffee. 43 households showed up, and the collective anger could have powered a small city. Trevor presented Sarah's final audit with the satisfaction of revealing a royal flush. The numbers were staggering. Brianna hadn't just stolen $78,000. She'd operated a criminal enterprise, phantom vend payments, inflated contracts, kickback schemes, $112,000 siphoned over 3 years. "Every family here has been robbed," Trevor announced to gasps and profanity that would make sailors proud. Average theft per household, $2,800. The vote of no confidence was unanimous, except Janine, who abstained while looking like she wished she could tunnel to Canada. 33 households demanded Brianna's immediate removal, criminal prosecution, and full restitution with interest. Friday morning brought the media circus Brianna had always craved, just not in the starring role she envisioned. Channel 7's van rolled in at dawn, followed by crews from rival stations smelling suburban scandal gold. Investigative reporter Janet Miles interviewed neighbors with the enthusiasm of someone who'd struck Emmy material. The evening news led with HOA president arrested in massive embezzlement scheme, complete with Brianna's mugshot and footage of her shredding evidence. My interview took every ounce of restraint my divorce had taught me. "This isn't about revenge or payback," I told the camera. "It's about holding people accountable when they abuse trust." The story exploded online faster than gossip at a high school reunion. #HOA horror trended nationwide within hours as people shared their own HOA nightmare stories and cheered our David versus Goliath victory. Brianna's real estate career imploded spectacularly. Her brokerage suspended her license immediately. Past clients began filing complaints, and her reputation became more toxic than nuclear waste. The foreclosure auction went ahead without drama. Brianna's house sold for $70,000 below market value because criminal investigations and news vans tend to scare off buyers. Saturday's 3 a.m. Facebook confession video was her final act of self-destruction. Sobbing into her phone, mascara running like abstract art, she blamed everyone but herself. "I was just trying to protect our community," she wailed. "Sometimes good people have to make hard decisions." The comment section became a firing squad of neighbors airing years of grievances. The video vanished within hours, but screenshots are forever. Our suburban tyrant's reign was officially over. The sentencing hearing, held on a crisp Thursday morning, felt like the season finale of the most satisfying reality show ever produced. The courthouse parking lot looked more like a block party than a legal proceeding, with over 40 neighbors carpooling like we were headed to the biggest sporting event of our lives. Judge Patricia Ortega's courtroom was packed beyond capacity, every pew filled with faces that had become comrades over the past 3 months. The air was thick with anticipation and the bitter aroma of courthouse coffee. Brianna sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit that clashed spectacularly with her over-bleached highlights, looking like a deflated balloon animal beside her overworked public defender. The woman who once terrorized our neighborhood with clipboard authority now resembled a scarecrow that had lost a fight with a tornado. Channel 7's cameras were set for maximum drama, and Janet Miles had scored front-row seats for what she was already calling the most satisfying HOA story of the decade. When Judge Ortega called for victim impact statements, I was the first to stand, my heart hammering like a misfiring piston. 3 months ago, I was just a quiet mechanic who kept to himself. Today, I was the voice for an entire community. Your Honor, this case began with a woman calling 911 because I opened my own garage door. I began, my voice steadier than I expected. But it was never really about a car. It was about power, control, and what happens when someone believes they can terrorize their neighbors without consequence. I described the escalating harassment, the fake police reports, the systematic theft that robbed every family of thousands. But most importantly, I spoke about fear, the way Brianna weaponized authority to make people feel unsafe in their own homes. "She didn't just steal our money," I continued, locking eyes with her as she stared at the table. "She stole our peace of mind, our sense of community, our belief neighbors should protect each other, not prey on one another." Trevor spoke next, his postal worker's voice steady and firm, shaped by decades of witnessing humanity's best and worst. Sarah presented the financial evidence with the precision of a surgeon. Linda described the toll Brianna's actions had taken on the children in our community and the powerful lesson they learned by watching adults stand up to injustice. When it was Brianna's turn, her attorney put on a performance worthy of local theater. Mental health struggles, divorce trauma, financial pressures, every excuse except the one that mattered: personal responsibility. "My client deeply regrets her actions," the public defender pleaded. "She's willing to make full restitution and undergo counseling." Finally, Brianna rose to address the court, and what came out was pure audacity wrapped in crocodile tears. "I never meant to hurt anyone," she sobbed, dabbing at her eyes with tissues working overtime. "This community meant everything to me. I was just trying to maintain standards, protect property values. Sometimes people don't understand that leadership requires difficult decisions." The collective eye roll from the courtroom was practically audible. Even her attorney looked like he wished he could crawl under the defense table. Judge Ortega had heard enough. "Miss Sutton," she began, her voice heavy with authority, "in 30 years on this bench, I have rarely encountered such a systematic abuse of fiduciary responsibility, combined with racial harassment and criminal intimidation." She paused, studying Brianna like an interesting but repulsive insect. "You held a position of trust and used it to steal from the very people who elected you. You targeted a minority homeowner with false police reports that could have led to tragedy. You destroyed evidence, attempted to flee jurisdiction, and even now, you refuse to accept responsibility." The judge's voice dropped into a tone that carried finality. "This court sentences you to 4 years in state prison, full restitution of $112,000 plus court costs, and 5 years of supervised probation following your release." The gavel fell like thunder, and the courtroom erupted in applause Judge Ortega didn't even try to suppress. The sound of 40 households finally getting justice was deeper and more satisfying than any cheer I'd ever heard, like the universe itself was setting things right. As Brianna was led away in shackles, she finally glanced back at our section of the courtroom. The look on her face wasn't remorse or apology. It was pure hatred for the people who dared hold her accountable. Outside on the courthouse steps, with cameras flashing and neighbors celebrating, a reporter thrust a microphone toward me. "Mr. Walker, what would you say to other homeowners dealing with HOA abuse?" I thought about everything we'd endured. The fear, the documentation, the coalition building, the countless hours that brought us here. "Document everything. Build community. Truth wins," I said, feeling the weight of 3 months of struggle and triumph in those 6 words. That quote went viral within hours, becoming a rallying cry for HOA reform movements across the country. But standing there in the sunshine, surrounded by neighbors who had become like family, I realized something deeper. We hadn't just defeated a bully. We had proven what a real community could accomplish when good people refused to back down. 6 months after Brianna's sentencing, Maple Ridge Estates had transformed from a suburban police state into the kind of neighborhood it was always supposed to be. The scent of Saturday barbecues and the sound of kids playing without fear had replaced the tension that once hung over us like smog. Our new HOA board, Trevor as president, Sarah as treasurer, and Mike handling legal affairs, implemented radical ideas like transparency and common sense. Monthly financial reports were posted online. Board meetings were actually announced ahead of time. Violation notices required photographic evidence and reasonable timelines. The community garden project, which Brianna would have fined into oblivion, now flourished behind the clubhouse. Linda coordinated the planting schedule with military efficiency, and watching neighbors who had barely spoken before share tomato seedlings felt like therapy. Property values, ironically, had risen 15% since Brianna's removal. Turns out, buyers prefer neighborhoods known for community that stood up to corruption over HOA president embezzles money while harassing minorities. Who could have guessed? The restitution payments rolled in like Christmas bonuses spread across 12 months. Every household received their stolen money plus interest, and watching neighbors pay off debts and plan real vacations with that money felt like justice in action. Brianna's new reality behind bars was far from glamorous. According to Clara, who stayed in contact out of guilt and morbid curiosity, our former suburban tyrant was now working in the prison laundry for 60 cents an hour and sharing a cell with someone convicted of armed robbery. Meanwhile, a group of documentary film students from State University turned our story into Garage Door Justice, an American story, which won a regional film festival and was picked up for national distribution. I donated my appearance fees to create the Maple Ridge Automotive Education Scholarship, funded by Brianna's ongoing restitution payments. 3 teenagers had already received scholarships for automotive programs. Watching Diego Morales, Linda's nephew, graduate from community college with an associate's degree in automotive technology was better than any car show trophy I'd ever won. My personal life had taken unexpected turns too. Sarah and I had been dating slowly and steadily for 4 months, bonding over shared battles and discovering that forensic accountants and mechanics had more in common than anyone might think. The Camaro that started it all had become something of a legend in classic car circles, featured in magazines as the car that defeated an HOA Karen. I'd gotten offers to buy it, but some things aren't for sale, especially a vehicle that accidentally became a symbol of standing up to institutional racism and suburban tyranny. Every Sunday, I still drove to car shows, but now I brought neighborhood kids who were curious about engines, restoration, and the satisfaction of fixing things with your own hands. Teaching Carlos Jr. how to adjust valve clearances while his dad watched proudly was worth more than any money Brianna could have stolen. The legal precedent our case set was cited in HOA fraud prosecutions across 3 states. Mike had been invited to speak at legal conferences about fiduciary duty violations, and our documentation methods were now taught in community organizing workshops nationwide. State lawmakers even passed the Maple Ridge Act, requiring annual financial audits for all HOAs, with budgets over $50,000. The bill signing included photos with the governor, but the real victory was knowing other neighborhoods wouldn't have to endure what we had. Last month, I got an email from a veteran in Phoenix facing harassment from his HOA president. Our story had inspired him to fight back. I started consulting with other communities pro bono, sharing the documentation strategies and coalition-building techniques that worked for us. Now, neighborhood block parties are monthly traditions, with everyone bringing dishes and stories, building genuine friendships that Brianna's rule had once made impossible. Watching kids from different families play together while adults swap grilling tips and home repair advice feels like rediscovering what the suburbs were always supposed to be. As I write this, I can hear Trevor's lawnmower and smell Linda's weekend baking drifting through my open garage. Signs of a healthy community, of people choosing to cooperate instead of tear each other down. Share your HOA nightmare stories in the comments. Your persistence might inspire someone else to stand up to their neighborhood tyrant. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories proving that justice still works when ordinary people refuse to accept the unacceptable. Next week, a Karen tries to steal a veteran's service dog and learns about federal crimes the hard way. From all of us here at HOA Stories, thanks for watching today's saga. If you enjoyed watching neighbors stand their ground and karma do its job, smash that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe so you won't miss the next chapter of HOA drama.